Well, welcome to River Thoughts yet again. We filmed quite a few all at once that you are hopefully watching at the moment, and this is the start of a few more coming up from somewhere around about mid-August. So welcome back to
James Osborne,
Peter Newing,
and Duncan Petty. We are a triplet today for this. We've got a whole host of topics lined up to talk about in the next few weeks. And so this first one, we are going to entitle... Well, I'm not sure if this is the title that will go out, but the question is life about the mundane? So, as I was chatting to these guys a minute ago, I thought I'd look up the definition of mundane to set them going. And this is what it says. It says, it means very ordinary, chaps, dull or uninteresting, according to what I have just Googled. It describes the normal, everyday things in life that lack excitement or magic. So common meanings, dull and routine, worldly or earthly, or subculture slang in sci-fi, etc. So that's just a few things, folks. So is life about the mundane, Peter or James? Is that what it's all about?
yes.
That's a,
Yep.
I shouldn't have asked that question to give the opportunity for a one-word answer, James. So,
Well, the word that I had in my mind was no. So I like to hear.
We've got a debate.
I like to hear reasoning, James. Your
let me set
reasoning.
the context for this, folks. I'm quite a fan of a poet called R.S. Thomas, a Welsh vicar who was almost a recluse at times on the, I'm not even sure how you pronounce it, the Flynn or whatever, double L-E-Y-N I think it is, or double L-Y-N, I can't remember. And he was an interesting chap, but his poems really gripped me. Anyway, I found in a charity shop a book called The Man Who Went Into the West, The Life of R.S. Thomas, written by a guy called Byron Rogers. And in this book, he quotes R.S. Thomas as saying that life was about the mundane. And so I thought it was a good question for us to dwell on. Is life actually about the normal everyday, or is it more than that? So that's why I'm opening it up. And we might have a yes and a no, but we want more than that, chaps.
My quick thing is life isn't about anything. It just is. So every answer to the filling the blank life is about, if you put in any word, you're not getting the full picture.
So mundane would only be one part of the whole thing.
Yeah, so the answer to life, my answer is there isn't an answer.
Okay. James, any thoughts on that one?
Why do you think yes?
I partially agree in that I don't think life is about any one thing, but is about all the things. So, like, sort of bouncing off of your thought, it's like life is about the interesting, life is about the exciting, life is about the chaotic, but it's also about the mundane. So life is about sort of experiencing the mundane.
So do we see the mundane, though, as dull, as that's just said, dull and uninteresting? Or is the mundane not dull and not uninteresting, but interesting?
You see, I struggled with that definition.
Okay, come on.
Because, like, recently in my life, I tried to do a whole load of stuff that I thought was interesting, and it all kind of fell apart, and I was forced to go back to doing the mundane, right? Because all the things I thought were really interesting that I was getting done, that I was enjoying, kind of all stopped working, and I was forced to, like, shrink my life back down to the bare minimum.
When you did that, how did it feel?
It felt horrible, but then I don't know if Stockholm syndrome or like a different perspective came in, and I was like, no, actually I quite like the everyday of drinking tea, you know, picking some herbs from my garden, not, you know, chasing after a goal or a task or the next exciting project. I actually really enjoy this kind of, I'll just keep doing what I do and not kind of panic about the kind of bigger picture for a bit. which I think has led to a healthier approach to life.
Right, go on, what do you say? Yeah, Peter.
Because I had something to say and then I changed the camera and then I forgot.
I mean, I'm intrigued by what you're saying about coming back to something what you've called the mundane or the normal or the everyday or whatever. I mean, I've been spending quite a lot of time when it isn't too hot lately in the garden. Now, there's a part of me that hankers after a few adventurous little trips out to places I've not been to before. You know, there'll be a bit of exploring new areas and just seeing new things and meeting new people. And that can be really good. But actually, I have got so much out of noticing things in what you might call the mundane out there in the garden recently. Things I've seen that I've not seen before, or developments, you know, like on the little banana plantation at the bottom of the garden that's just happened, there are bananas growing on it.
Nice.
And, well, you know, it's just amazing. They're only about, 2 or 3 inches long in little bunches, but I'm thinking, well, it's amazing. I've got bananas growing in the garden. Now, is that mundane? Or is that a bit more than what most people would call the mundane? You know, it's just part of pottering about in the garden.
I think about this sometimes with life, since not having a school to go to, not doing a degree, not being a student, and then also beyond working, not working. Sort of, what is the point? And the best answer to that for me, like I've said before, is there is no point. Just enjoy your life as it is.
As it is.
You know, because...
So do you feel, that I'm going to ask this with a particular reason behind it, do you feel that you're living life to the full?
No.
Ah.
I feel I am very happy with my life and I wouldn't want it to change. So it's a bit contradictory, but I feel like there is more to life, but I don't know if it will be in...
You say you want it to change, but every time I meet you, say on a Wednesday night at the pub, you say, I've just been doing this project last week, and I've done this or that. Well, that's not the same. That's change.
My main thought when I think about that is just like having some sort of career and having a family. Whereas I'm very happy and contented because I get to, have relaxed days. I get to just sit in the mundane, have cups of tea, watch something vaguely interesting. And I sometimes go out for walks with family, but sometimes I do find myself looking at, say, my sister or my brother who has a career, but more importantly has a spouse, has children, and I feel like, is that going to happen? But for me, that's almost outside of my control. It happens if it happens. So
your point really about living almost life now as it is the point, isn't it? And then it's how you live that life that is, and not a life that could be.
Yeah.
It could be that something would happen, but I mean, I didn't. None of us know what's going to happen, do we, going forward?
No.
Yeah. So one of the things, there's a couple of things I'm thinking about sort of in relation to what you've been saying. One of them is there's a really misunderstood part of the Bible where it says that God makes all things work out for the good of those who love him. But the original translation would have been that things happen and then God makes those things have a meaning and a relevance and a good sort of outcome for those.
They might not be good to start with.
Yes, exactly. So it's not, God's going to make good things happen.
No, it's not.
And God's going to give you things that mean that everything has meaning. The meaning is assigned afterwards.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I try to kind of like think about in life is that actually a lot of the things that happen don't happen for a reason, but we can then choose to assign a meaning
Yeah.
to them after they've happened or during their happening, rather than being sort of trapped by some cosmic reason that we cannot, that we have to understand. And
the way I think about it is about perspective. Your life is what it is, and the same life to one person can be complete rubbish, or you can be really satisfied. In my simple life, I'm really satisfied.
Yeah, I get that impression.
And me thinking about maybe comparison and thinking maybe it's not great, but there's pros and cons to everyone's life. And some people look at my routine and they think, that's amazing. How much YouTube do you watch? But then I look at the meaning of a child having a family, but then I don't have to deal with, nappies
the
and stuff.
difficult bits that go with it.
Yeah. So there's pros and cons. So it's about perspective of, it's not about finding that you have to do good things. It's seeing good in the things that you do anyway.
Yeah, because they will be there. Even if you're suffering at the time, they will be there, which was James' point a minute ago. I'm just trying to think where exactly it is. It's in one of the New Testament letters, I think. But,
yes, it is.
I'm not quite sure where to pin it down.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
But I think also it is just about Jesus. John's Gospel, chapter 10, verse 10, famous line says, I came that they might have life and have it in all its fullness. But that doesn't necessarily mean the way we might perceive what that life should be. It's just, are we going to take the attitude that even in the things that you call dull, boring, uninteresting, or mundane, normal, or whatever you want to call it, there's something about resting in that despite, because you kind of know that it will be worked for good if your heart's in the right place, and don't yearn for things that you might, don't covet something you might not be destined to have, sort of thing. There are ways of resting in complicated scenarios and in dull scenarios, and I think there's something about, is life about the mundane? Well, part of it is, but that's okay, and you can still be full in that. I think that's what I'm trying to say.
I think that's like what contentment is.
That's a good word to bring in.
So people in the UK who are watching will be familiar with Winnie the Pooh, right? And Winnie the Pooh's a superhero. Okay? Like, this is my... I fully believe that Winnie the Pooh is a superhero. His supernatural power and ability is contentment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
And the power of Pooh's contentment in the context of everyone around him being chaotic or struggling with like anxiety and depression, or ending up in chaotic situations, his ability to be steady and content actually in the small things of a jar of honey and being around friends is kind of overpowered, compared to like, you think, oh, flying's great, but if you ain't happy, you're still not happy 1,000 miles in the air. Right? If you're not, you could go invisible, but even if you're invisible, you're sad in whatever room you're in.
Stop me there for a second. I'm going to quote this because I think it might be helpful in the middle of the conversation rather than the end of it. Because Paul, in a letter to the Philippians, he says in chapter 4, and it just made me think of that, what you're saying. He said, I'm not saying this because I am in need, for I have learnt to be content whatever the circumstances. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I've learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do everything through him who gives me strength, which is kind of, Jesus said, I'll give you the life. And I think there's something about that word contentment that you brought in that we never planned that fits with this, really.
So I'm reading a book at the moment. It's a poetry book by a writer who calls themselves Cold Mountain. which is because that's where they live, in a cold mountain. They don't use a real name; they just call themselves Cold Mountain. And it was translated by someone who calls themselves Red Pine. So it's interesting. But in the
Fascinating books you've got on your
shelf.
James.
I've got some wild books on my shelves. And the book is kind of all about this feeling of, I live up a cold mountain, almost separated from the rest of humanity. You know, sometimes I live in a cave, sometimes I live in a hut with no rooms. It's just one room in this tiny little hut. But I'm chilling. I'm all right. I'm good. You know, I've got, you know, I can step outside and see the sky. I can go for a walk and see flowers as I go. Stuff that, it blows my mind to hear people say it, but stuff that some people think of as being mundane.
Yeah.
Which
might also be true.
Yeah.
Something like Peter shares sometimes, like, well, I watched a series of things on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, that might be seen as exactly the same to somebody else who doesn't see it that way. But so what?
I found it fascinating. I said the other day that I don't read because I actually get a lot of my learnings are from conversations on podcasts.
Which is the same equivalent, isn't it?
So even though, you know, I'm sat on a sofa with my feet up watching the TV, I'm actually living a world of some other person's story, and you sort of travel the world with that. But it could be mundane for some, but for me, you sort of live the experience of others. And so,
well, just to take your point, I'm going to move and muck up the filming. Peter gave me a book to read because he told me he'd bought it, and then he gave it to me to read because he was listening to it online. And I've got this book called 2084 and the AI Revolution by John Lennox. Now, you've been listening to it, and I've been reading it.
Yeah.
I ended up buying it off him because he only wanted the listening bit. So we've ended up doing the same thing by a different method. So what does it matter? You know, that could be considered as mundane, or it could be considered as fascinating.
I just want to put on my sort of mental health and autism hat for a second and just say that listening to a book is the same as reading a book.
Yeah.
I want that to sort of be put out there very clear.
Do you know what?
In the world.
What I do sometimes is I'll have the book and I'll have the audio book, and I'll do both at the same time.
I know a lot of people who do that. Yeah.
So is that mundane, or is that, you know?
No, it's next level, but I haven't. I just do whatever's the least amount of friction cognitively, and I just do TV.
And
but that's Taoism.
It was interesting the other night in our small group that we had a discussion about quite a few of the people were visual people, not word people.
Yeah.
And you're a bit of a crossover there, because I mean I love the word bit, but you in a sense often will listen to something or watch something in the same way.
Yeah.
Because and for those who are visual, that's a better way for them to do it, isn't it?
Although what I do like multitasking sometimes, because I'll just be coding while I'm watching TV.
Do you know, you had to get that. Peter's got this thing about this word coding this week. I think that's 3 nights in a row he slipped that word in, folks. We won't go into that one. I think it's definitely mundane.
It's all I do. it's all I do.
All right, anything else on this? Because I'm just conscious I'm looking at the time, and I want to keep to a reasonable length.
Just a quick thing on contentment and something Peter was saying that I think relates to the philosophy of Taoism or Taoism, depending on who you ask, which is the idea of living a life that doesn't have a lot of friction. You were talking about cognitive friction.
Yeah.
And a life that doesn't have a lot of striving and pushing and trying to force life to happen, but instead enjoying whatever comes. And I think that's I think that's an important skill that I don't have a lot of the time, where like I want to see stuff happen, but also the thing I've been learning recently is actually it's all right to just like sit and enjoy a cup of tea and like not overthink it. Yeah.
I think there is something. I mean, as we wrap this one up, I mean, please butt in, chaps, if you think there's an extra here. But you know, the whole idea of these videos we do, these podcasts, is to be helpful. And if you're, you know, you might be watching this in one of a number of places, in a, you know, reasonably content, suffering and struggling with something, and therefore feeling that there's got to be more to life than this kind of thing. Or you might be in a height of excitement about something that probably you're going to come off the top of into something that doesn't seem quite so exciting. But what we're trying to say is there's something in there about being content, and something about living life in the moment, in the now, and not putting pressure on yourself to think that there's a better way or whatever. That normal everyday might not be dull and uninteresting. Something along those lines.
Sorry to extend things even further.
Go on.
But on my radio show, one of the things we do every week is we rate our mental health out of 10. 10 being excellent, 1 being pretty terrible, should probably seek some medical attention. Yeah. Same with like 2s, 3s, 4s are borderline. But the aim is to be like not at a 10 all the time where you're feeling really, really good, ecstatic. The aim is to be at like a 6, 7 and 8 where you are calm, content, at peace with whatever you're doing, not stressed out. That's the kind of the goal of life, if you like. And I try and shift people's perspective, because a lot of the time in medical treatment, the aim is to get people to a 10 or like, you know, people to a 9. It's like day to day, you might have moments of those, but actually being all right is actually worth its weight in gold.
Yeah,
you know?
I think the main reason I'm so at peace with my life and how boring it is because I've had so much interesting things you say, but that's been, you know, mental health, trauma, suffering. If I have a whole day where I'm completely content, and that might be doing nothing, but that's my ideal at the moment.
Yeah,
absolutely. And
that's
I think
true beauty.
For most people, it'd be great, wouldn't it? Well, that's a good way to sign off, I think, folks. We hope you'll join us for the next one. We won't let into the secrets of what we're planning next. That will be for you to wait for.
I mean, that's mostly because we don't know.
See you next time. No, it's not. Thank you very much. Cheers.